Hey.
Yeah, we're going to get started pretty soon. So everybody knows who I am. I'm the Kathleen Cook, the president of the Arizona Authors Association, and we're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, and we've been around since 1978. So we've done this a lot, and we have monthly Zoom meetings now. We used to have quarterly, but they got so popular that we started doing monthly ones, and I've got them booked through the end of next year. So
Mhm.
I think we're doing well. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Robert. He was a editor for many, many years. I shouldn't say many because you're probably younger than me, but
Oh, it was many, many years.
okay. He started out in Coffeyville, Kansas, and Springfield, Missouri, and then he later went to Phoenix, and he became the opinions editor of the Arizona Authors Arizona Republic. Sorry, I got my own thing on the brain here of the Arizona Republic, which is the largest paper in the state. And he was also the national president of the Society of Professional Journalists, and he's written over 4 million words. 400. See, I've got too much else on the brain right now, but I'll get through this. And he retired as the opinions editor on in the Arizona Republic, and now he does novels. And his first novel is called Where I Does Not Exist, and it combines New Mexican folklore with magical realism. So that sounds like a big departure from the newspapers. And when he's not writing, he and Cindy, his wife, are you can see all their musical instruments behind you on him on his feet, and they do a duet that is wonderful. If anybody wants me to send them a link to a YouTube video that I saw in which you played a Beatles tune. I believe it was Eleanor Rigby, but I'm not sure. But I think it was that.
No, it was another
Nope.
one.
It
Yeah.
must have been a different one, but anyway, it was cool. So if anybody wants me to send that, I will. But anyway, that's what I thank you, Robert, for doing this. I really appreciate it, and take it away.
Okay. May I share my screen?
Oh, sure, sure.
See, okay. Here we go.
Okay, there.
Let's see. And how do I get to, here we go. I don't do these that often. Okay.
Okay, great.
So we're going to talk about getting your 2 cents out and how to win friends, influence people. Depending on the opinion, may not win friends, but hey, we try. So here is the obligatory credentials slide. Is this thing over? Let me change how I'm looking at it here.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Because your faces were covering part of it on my screen.
Uh,
So there's an editorial board meeting on the ninth floor of the old Republic building. They no longer are there. Janet Napolitano there on the left. I believe this was when she was Homeland Security Secretary. So as Katie mentioned, I was in newspapers for a long time. About 2/3 of that I was, or a little more than half, I was on doing opinions, picking letters, picking guest columns, writing editorials at the Springfield News Leader, Missouri, the Scottsdale Republic, and finally the Arizona Republic. So why is this not? Okay. Okay, so this morning we will talk about letters to the editor, basic elements and how to get them published, about guest columns, and about press releases, just very briefly. So what are the elements of a good letter? It should be topical and local, particularly in the newspapers here in Arizona, whether you're looking at the Republic or you're looking at the Fountain Hills Times, uh, the various community papers around town. They're going to be a lot more interested in your opinions about some local topic that's in the news right now. Uh, Less interested in what you think about what's going on in Washington, unless you can make a connection to your community. Generally, they're going to be short and conversational. Letters generally no more than 200 words, and even that is pushing it. Once you look at a newspaper column and how it looks in a small column, 200 words is a lot of goes down quite a few inches and looks longer than 200 words. One of the papers that I looked at, they put a limit of 160 words on their letters. Columns can be a little longer. We'll talk about that in a minute. And you generally want to be conversational, especially with a really short letter. You don't want to weigh it down with a lot of, the literary stuff that you might do in a short story or a novel. Just write it like you're talking to your mom or your next door neighbor. Thought-provoking letters are always welcomed. Ones that perhaps bring up a new element in an issue or raise a new issue. We'll get to one of those in a little while here. Letters that add to the discussion. Perhaps you're responding to a letter that appeared previously, so there's this conversation over time that goes on. Passionate letters are always a lot more interesting than boring letters. You want to feel something about the issue you're writing about. And if you can work some humor in, it always helps. I mean, not every letter is going to be humorous, but and humor doesn't, it's probably the wrong thing for some topics. Writing about suicide prevention, humor does not belong there. But there are other places. The letter I'll show you in just a minute where the humor just makes it a great letter. So here are some samples of letters. Here's one on continuing the local conversation. A guest column had appeared supporting a ballot measure that's coming up in November that limits what unions can do. Matter of fact, come to think of it, that is not even going to be on the ballot. A judge threw it off because it was too broad and would end up applying not just to schools but to other places. But anyway, so this was a response where it's almost a call and response type of response. She's taking the arguments that Mr. Wythe and Mr. Olson made and saying, okay, this is what they said, but this is my personal experience. This is what they said. This is my personal experience. And by the way, I've never been a union member, so it's not like I'm supporting the union, but they're lying about what actually happened in the schools. So, I mean, she never calls them liars. She just states her experience. So that's a great way to continue a conversation. The whole thing was 168 words. I hope you had a chance to read it while I was talking, multitasking and all that. This is a letter I was talking that is just so funny. I'll just let you read it because, I mean, it's just humor. He does use metaphors and literary devices, but they're short, they're to the point, and they just really make the letter. Read this and then it'll continue on the next page. I can't see anybody, so I can't see your faces.
Oh, God. We're still here.
Okay, are we ready to go to the next page? Has everybody read it?
Sure.
Okay. And this letter to me just made the price of that day's newspaper worth it. It was just such a fun read and left a smile on my face. The fact that I agreed with them is beside the point, but yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. So, but he did it so well. Okay, I thought I had another letter, did I? Oh, sorry, I skipped over this one. This is one where we had a little bit of passion going. Somebody's angry at Katie Hobbs because she's refusing to debate her opponent. I mean, she's very measured, but the passion comes through in a measured way. It's not a fist pounder, and you really don't need to have a fist pounder, but you do need to really believe in what you're saying. And I think this Diane Spence has done that. And again, a letter that's about 168 words. Any questions on letters at this point?
Can a letter be too passionate, though? If it's too, it can almost be inflammatory in a way. And is that
There's quite a few publications in their guidelines do if passion becomes libelous or insulting or nothing but a rant, then yeah, then that has too much passion. It's got to be like this one. It's measured, it's passionate, but she's not going overboard. So yes, I think the short answer is yes, it can be too passionate.
okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like over here.
And you
Okay.
write the same letter to more than one paper?
Generally, they like to be they prefer exclusivity. You can send it to a paper if they turn it down. And they won't tell you they're turning it down. You just won't get an acceptance from them within a couple of days. If you don't hear from them within a few days, they go on to your next choice and your next choice.
Oh, okay. How about in a different state? Like if you had one in one state, but you had some connection with another state that might
You'd probably be fine there. You'd probably be fine there, yeah.
fine.
There's not going to be a lot of, I mean, even within the internet age, there's not going to be a lot of overlap in that regard.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay, I was trying to figure out a way that I can do both at the same time here, watch you guys and just do it. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Okay, so moving on to a guest column. It's going to have a lot of the same elements as a letter. You want it to be topical, you want it to be local. But there's even more emphasis in a guest column for citing facts. Some of those, the letters we looked at, they were very, very sparse in facts. In a guest column, because you have more space, you really need to build your opinion on the facts. Like the old saying goes, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but not to their own facts. But you can take the same set of facts and two people can come to different conclusions based on those facts. Matter of fact, whenever you submit a guest column to the Daily Star in Tucson, they ask you for links that back up any facts that you state in the column. I don't know how closely they do it at the Republic anymore. Whenever I was there, and even in the years after that, until within the last couple of years when there was more people handling opinions, they would ask if there was something that wasn't, there was no citation in the column as to where that fact came from. They would ask somebody to support it before publishing it, which some people took offense at that, thinking that they were, censoring what they were wanting to say. That wasn't at all. They just, if you're stating a fact, they want to know where it came from, if it's a credible source. The best columns will share a personal experience or our expertise in a topic. The first column I'll show you is a personal experience. It's so well written, and it couldn't have been written by anybody except her or her neighbors. Special knowledge, a letter from the father of a special needs child who also is involved in a nonprofit that supports families with special needs. So he's combining both his own personal experience raising his son and his subject knowledge. So those things will always help to push you further up the list and getting accepted. If you're just writing a column about something about which you're not personally involved, you don't have any special knowledge, it's less likely to be accepted for publication. Again, provokes thought. There's one that I found in research that took me someplace where I never would have thought to go before. That's always a good thing to do. And again, that measured passion, you want to have that in there. So we'll start with, let's see. Start with this personal experience. The city of Phoenix closed Sweetwater Park for renovation. It was closed for a month or two. And this woman found that she really missed being able to take her dog on a walk, but there was more to it than that. as she says in the last line here, eventually we realized we were searching for one another, not for another park. And I would highly recommend just do a Google search for that headline, and so you can read the full thing. It's 600 and it's around 600 words, so way too long to put on a PowerPoint. Let you read this part real quickly, and then I'll go on to some other quotes from it. But again, I mean, she has the specifics. It's not just her dog, it's a Borzoi with his 22-inch long legs, basic good writing of having the specific details. And then the point of her letter. We were searching for one another. Because parks are more than open space, there were ordinary relationships take root. And then another set of suggestions. One person had a backyard play date, another wanted to meet for coffee after the walk, another wanted to show them her remodeled kitchen. And they're because of while they've been looking for this park, they've learned more about each other as neighbors. It's just a really, I mean, it's not a world-changing column. It's not going to include a political race or anything, but it's a really wonderful slice of life, and I'm sure that's why this was in the Republic. That's why they chose it. This is out of the Tucson Sentinel. I'm not quoting from it at all, but again, this is building your opinion off of facts. And again, these facts, somebody else might make a different argument from them. But this was an Army veteran who was being evicted from his mobile home because he didn't have enough money to pay the mortgage and everything else. But the facts that he was very critical of his representative and of the president. And among the specific facts that he used to back up his opinion was that his monthly disability payment actually rose, but it still wasn't enough. He had a percentage of how many Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That I'm sure that the paper probably made sure that it was an accurate figure. He listed, and he apparently often goes down and comments at Arizona Corporation Commission meetings on rate increases. So he has the total amount of proposed utility rate increases going before the commission from APS, from TEP, I think from another one. It was a big figure. And then how many campaign contributions Cisco Mining had gotten from the utilities, from gas and from oil. So he wasn't just ranting that everything is too expensive. He did, and he blamed Trump and Cisco Mining for it, but he also had facts to back up his opinion. And that's what lifted it to that level that made it publishable. And then this is the one I was talking about that took me someplace I would have never thought about. The Surgeon General has said that, loneliness is a bad thing. It's an epidemic. And then this guy said one of the places to solve it is in neighborhood boxing gyms. I never would have thought about this. He wrote that community centers are disguised as training spaces. They're a place where people come together as a community, much like that park letter. And so he showed us a slice of the community that a lot of us probably have no idea of what goes on in there. And it led me, like I said, led me to a place that I wouldn't have gone otherwise. And then this is the fellow who was opposing moving special education oversight from the Education Department to Health and Human Services. Now, you may think, okay, I said earlier that not to write about things in Washington. He's writing about a national issue, but he's making it very local, and that's how you can connect them. And he's also doing it with his personal and professional expertise. So if you're involved in an issue like that, and you have, you want to oppose something going on in Washington, if you can make a connection to your life, to your neighbor's life, to this state's life, that's how it's going to work. Somebody just writing, I don't think they should be doing this with no connection to the issue, that letter's not going to get published. Before we move on, I'm just going to spend a little time on press releases. Any more questions on op-eds, guest columns before I move on?
One thing I want to say is that I did a guest column one time, and the editor told me that that the reason he picked my letter was because I was on both sides of the issue at the same time, because it was about disabled children, and they were going to cut funding at the local school district for either the gifted program or the learning disabled program. They wanted to cut one and they didn't know which one to cut. And I had one daughter in learning disabled and two sons in the gifted program.
Hmm.
So he said that my position was so unique because no one else had that experience. And so that's what caused it. And I think when you're on opposite sides of the issue and you can tell your conflict, I think it's the conflict that probably makes people, I don't know, listen.
I mean, when you first said you were on both sides of the issue, I thought, boy, I would have never run that letter until you got to the next point where you said, I had personal experience because I had children in each of the two programs that they were trying to decide to cut. I don't want either one of those to be cut.
Yeah.
That raises it beyond, you know, on this hand, on that hand.
Mhm.
Take a side for the most part. I think you had a unique experience. You had a unique take that does lift above the on the other hand type column, which to me is, for the most part, not worth publishing.
Yeah.
Robert,
Okay.
I got a question too.
Sure.
So we used to have the newspaper dropped on our sidewalk, which we don't anymore. It's if I want to look up something, I look it online. Is there a way to easily see these letters to the editor on local papers
Yes.
virtually?
Yeah. And I'll get to that in the next section.
Okay, thank you.
Because one of the things because the next section is how do you get published, and one of the points I do want to make there is that you ought to study the particular issue publication you have in mind. Some don't even print letters, so you wouldn't want to submit a letter there. They might do a guest column. Press releases. If you're involved with a community, with a nonprofit, with a community group, even with a business, a lot of the smaller papers will welcome your press release and will likely publish it unedited. They'll just go right into the paper. On the slide that I earlier, they showed a press release for a Musica Nova concert. I knew about that one because my wife plays in it and I'm on the board. But they just ran the press release exactly as we submitted it to them. So it's a good place to get a good way, particularly. I mean, the larger papers, the Republic, the Star, probably even Flagstaff, are less likely to run them verbatim. Although in the community sections they might. But the smaller papers, the Times Media, the independent papers, they're more likely to just take it and use it to fill a hole. But to do that, you need to get right to the point. Don't back into it. Just say right away what the point of the press release is, what's happening. Just give the facts. There's no room for opinion in a press release. Answer the basic questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how. Keep the sentences short, keep the paragraphs short. And that's pretty much it. But the most important thing is don't write a big flowery first 2 or 3 paragraphs and then say what the point of the thing is, because these editors looking at this, they don't have time. They're going to look at that first sentence, and if it doesn't tell them what the thing's about, they're just going to hit the delete key and move on. So, and it's the same for the readers. The thing to remember when you're writing for a newspaper, most writing in a newspaper is like around the 7th, 8th grade level. And I remember I've mentioned that fact in the past. People say, well, does that mean you think people reading the newspaper are dumb? No. It means that people reading a newspaper are reading it differently than when they're reading a novel or they're reading a short story. They're reading it over breakfast. They're reading it while getting the kids ready to go to school. They're maybe reading it on the light rail if they're commuting that way. Um, they have a lot of things going on, and so it needs to be kept easily digestible. And so you want to do that with your letters, with your guest columns, with your press releases. Think of who the reader is and what they're doing as they're reading what you've written. They're busy. Keep it easy to read. So, back over here. So, to get a guest column published or a letter, generally, I think you start with 3 questions. The first one is, why am I writing this letter or column? What point do you want to make? Who do you want to influence? If you're wanting to influence everybody in Phoenix, then you're probably going to want to go to the Republic. If you're wanting to influence the people in your immediate community, Glendale, Chandler, Tempe, then you're probably better off going to the weekly that covers that community, because first you're going to have better odds of getting in there, and 2, you're reaching directly to the people that you're wanting to influence. And 3, where will you find the best odds of being published? And I'll get to that as I go through each individual publication that I pulled out information on. The longest odds are going to be the bigger papers, Tucson, the Arizona Republic. The shortest odds, I'll hold that as a surprise. The best odds are a particular community chain that I'll surprise you within a minute. So the Arizona Republic, letters, they want less than 200 words, and they have a form online that's not easy to find. I had to go really searching to find it. And it's this long, oops, sorry about that, this long URL that I will give you time to write down. Or if somebody wants me to send you the PowerPoint, I'm glad to do that. Or hold it, you know what, I didn't get there. After I close out after I stop sharing, I'll put these URLs into the chat.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. If I've been thinking, I would have had that all ready to go. But anyway, so letters, they have a form. And all of these publications are going to ask you for your full name, a mailing address, and a phone number. They're not going to print your mailing address or your phone number. They're asked for those for verification purposes. In my time at the Republic, we called everybody before we published their letter to make sure that they actually wrote it. I had a few occasions over my 21 years when I would call somebody to confirm a letter, and they said, no, I didn't send you anything. There was somebody using their name. So you don't ever, the editors never want to be in that position of publishing something that wasn't actually written by somebody. And then I had a few who tried to slip a pseudonym by me. You know, we don't use assumed identities on our bylines for the reporters, and we don't want our letter writers doing that either, unless they have a really good reason to do it. One person was when I was in Scottsdale, one person was very proud of me, of himself, for having slipped an acronym by. He used the name of the author, the fake name of the author of the Nancy Drew books. If you'd used the Hardy Boys, I would have caught it. But I didn't read Nancy Drew. So you have a better chance that the Arizona Republic with letters. They publish more of those, probably 10 a week. Columns, they maybe print 2 or 3 a week. So only a fraction are going to get printed. That's where relying on your personal experience or your subject expertise is really important. And those, you don't have to fill out the form. You can just send them to this email address. Again, I'll put all of these in the chat after I close out the sharing. skipping them. Okay, the Arizona Daily Star. They want letters under 160 words. Columns can be 400 to 700 words, so they're a little more generous on the columns than the Republic is. Again, they want your name, your address, your phone. They also ask for the area of town that you're in, which if you're writing from outside of Tucson is always interesting. Because I did a few op-eds for clients that we wanted to get down there. They want you to include whatever your expertise is on the subject in the text of the letter, so that you're communicating to the reader why you have some credibility to be writing this letter. In their form, they ask you to disclose any relationship you have to an issue or to a campaign. If you're writing to support, if you're writing to support candidate A, and you're working on or volunteering with a campaign for candidate A, they want to know that. It's just basic transparency.
Yeah.
And then they have a box in their form where they ask you to provide links to the facts that you cite in your text. They won't put those links in the letter if it's printed, especially if it's printed in print, but they do use it to verify the facts that you're using. Their URL is a whole lot closer. It's just tucson.com/opinion. And then there's one button for submit a letter, another button for submit a column, a guest column. They both have the same explanation of what they're looking for, and then the form. Daily Independent. They have 17 community editions across Phoenix. And they have varied vibrancy on their letters. Some have very few letters. Some have a lot. I noticed the Sun City edition has a lot of letter writers, a lot of guest columns. Fountain Hills, which is where I am, has always had a very vibrant letter column. They don't, however, print any columns. The main Daily Independent page, the umbrella, will pick up columns and letters from the other sections. They post a civility pledge. They ask that you read it. They don't ask you to attest that you're going to follow it, but it's what their guidance on letters, and it's essentially what you would expect. Don't insult other people. Don't libel people. Be civil in your conversations. Again, if you're looking to publish in one of these, look at that community's edition, get an idea of how much they're printing. Sometimes they may not have a lot of letters because they don't get a lot of letters, and that may be a clue to you that, hey, maybe I got a good chance with the letter. They also do a mix of regular people columns, people like us, and they usually have a stable of people. Elvia Diaz, a Bob Robb, who used to be, both of whom used to be at the Republic, Dave Leibowitz, who's a PR practitioner here in town. Some of those folks are regular contributors, so kind of overlook them and see how many other regular folks are in there. To get to them, again, it's yourvalley.net. That's their main website. It lists all of their community sections there. And then if you click on that and go down to the contact form on the letter, it'll tell you who that local editor is for that section, that community, and their email address. Or you can just email directly to the azopinions@iniusa.org.
When you
I'm sorry,
when
ahead.
you use the AZ opinions, does that go to a lot of different independent branches?
I think
does that work?
what I was about to say, I would suggest going through the local editor that you really want your piece to appear in. I don't know where the AZ Opinions goes to be totally honest with you. It probably goes to their top editor or his assistant, his or her assistant. And then maybe from there it gets billed to the editor who would be most interested, or perhaps put on their main page if it's a citywide type issue. Probably for a citywide issue, the AZ Opinions email would be good. But really what they're looking for is the hyper local, the Glendale, the Chandler, the Tempe, the Anthem. I think they have an HNF Anthem. That's really their bread and butter is hyperlocal. And now, let's see,
Okay.
yes, to reveal where you have your best chance of getting a letter or guest column printed, the Times Media Group. I looked through several of their publications. They have 19 publications here, 7 in Tucson. I looked through a lot of them and could find no letters or editors. So I reached out to the editor at Mesa, Paul Mariniak, who I used to work with. We both worked at the Republic at the same time. And I said, can you confirm to me that you just don't use letters? And he answered, we don't get that many, but when we do, we run them. So if you're looking for a place where you have a nearly 100% chance, of course, nothing is ever 100%, but if you're looking for the place with the best chance of getting published, Times Media Group.
I had a question. What is the motivation for someone to want to write a letter to the editor? I have to confess, I have never ever done that in my life.
The primary, oh, and I don't put down a URL for time. You just, I will answer your question in a minute, Peter. Since I didn't put a URL here, I think if you just do a Google for Times Media Group, it'll come up. Why does somebody write a letter to the editor? To express an opinion, the same reason that people express an opinion on, say, Facebook, to try to influence the course of events. Those would be the two main things. And some people, maybe just because they like to see their name in print. In my time at every newspaper, there were some folks who wrote letters almost every day, even knowing that we were only going to print one a month from them. Because we checked that. We actually had the staff where we could check when the last time we read a letter from Peter Barnhart was. In this case, they would have been never. But in the case of one of the regulars, and I remember the names because they wrote so much, Andrew March, Dan Peel, etc. We could go back and see, okay, when are you eligible to be run again? Because we're not going to run you every single day. The reader's going to get tired of that. So yeah, there are some people who just really want to participate. Maybe they just like to see the name in print, but mostly it's because people have a strong opinion about an issue. They want to share it, and they want to share it in a traditional media source. I mean, some people prefer to do it through Nextdoor, Facebook, wherever. Some people want to do it in traditional media. Tucson, oh, let me make sure did I? Yeah, Tucson Sentinel, which has the ugliest logo masthead I've seen in any newspaper anywhere. This runs right over each other. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. As far as I can tell, they run no letters, but they do run columns. They don't really have it. They say in their submission guidance, they don't have a set list, but generally 500 to 1,000 words, and don't bore the reader. And I think that particular bit of advice fits for any place you send it, any length you write it. You can probably bore a reader in 200 words. You can certainly bore them in 1,000. Keep it interesting. They have a long list of what they want and what they don't want at that URL there, and you submit to them via email. Again, I'll put these in the chat. And that takes us to questions that you haven't already asked.
I want to ask you what I asked you when you first came
right.
on. How is the newspaper different, a business different now than when you started?
It's a lot less profitable than when I started. And that is certainly showing up in the sizes of the newspapers. I graduated from journalism school in December of '78. During my time in college, I went from writing stories on an electric typewriter and pasting the pages together, marking them up with a wax pencil, to writing on a computer. My
Mhm.
first job in Coffeyville, Kansas, we had 2 computer terminals for the entire staff, writers and editors. It had capacity for about 400 to 450 words. If you were writing anything longer than that, you had to output the story onto this little um, the tape with the holes in it. Those of us old enough to remember will know that. And then you would run that through a machine. It would print out. It would put onto a newspaper column size printing a piece of paper, what you'd already written, and then you finish the story and then output that.
Wow.
Obviously, computers are far more powerful now. Uh, there was no online presence. There was no web competition. Um, if you wanted to advertise in your community, it was pretty much the newspaper, local TV, local radio. Um, One ads, car ads, um, really paid a lot of the bills.
Mhm.
Uh, then you get to the internet age, and there was a lot of conversation within the industry as to do we make our content free? Do we charge for it? And almost everybody initially went for free, and that just siphoned readers away from the print product. And eventually, then you also had um, the online job search places. Car dealers could advertise directly to customers, and so all those ad sources dried up, and profit margins that had been as for a small. I think I started in Coffeyville. I would guess that the profit margin there was probably close to 50%. At a larger at a metro paper, profit margins were running 20 to 30%, which meant millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
As those revenues drop, and and then of course you had the newspaper chains started buying everybody up and going public on the stock market. So whenever the profit margins dropped, the the returns to shareholders dropped. It just really put a lot of pressure on those chains to cut costs. And the more and of course the biggest cost in putting out a newspaper is the staff, the reporters and editors. And there's not a newspaper today that has a staff that it had say 20 years ago. When I came to the Republic in 2006, there are more than 400 reporters and editors
Mhm.
spread across 3 floors of that building at 200, 300 Van Buren, East Van Buren. Today they're in a small space at Plaza Central, Central Plaza, the
Oh,
shopping center up at further up on Central. Um, I have no idea how many people are left there, but it's got to be dozens, under
oh my
100.
goodness.
And that just means that you have fewer people to cover stories. There are some stories that go uncovered. Um, and you're always, I mean, I've also moved the printing up to Las Vegas, so the deadlines are incredibly early. So what was in this morning's paper is probably news from 2 days ago, not just yesterday, 2 or 3 days ago. So they're losing any sense of timeliness. I read it online as well. And so I've read most of the stories online before I see them in print. Um, their greatest strength at this point for a newspaper, not I mean, and TV has faced the same cost pressures, the same splitting up of the ad stream, revenue stream. The where newspapers still have an advantage is when they can do in-depth reporting. Um, I mean, some of the things the Republic has done some really great work on Colorado water and the challenges facing the state there. Gone into much more depth than anybody else than any broadcast medium can. They did some great work on the cannon down at Pinell. with his sexting scandal, if you will. Didn't change the outcome of the election, but people voted knowing full well what his history was. They've done some other work like that that I've really been proud of. There is no opinion page to speak of, not like there was in our I mean, we had even then the editorial staff was down to 6, 8 people. Now the editorial staff is 0. They haven't been doing daily opinions.
Wow.
I mean, there's been no daily opinion page for years, and it's all guest columns now. There's no editorials. Whether that's a good thing or not, I suppose it's in the eye of the beholder. I spent my whole career, or most of my career doing that, so I find it a sad thing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Other questions?
Question: what if you wanted to write an advice column, not an opinion, but or even a Q&A, if you're an expert in an area? Do papers, I don't seem to see those anymore. Like, remember Ann Landers even, or I don't know, something like that. Is that of interest anymore?
If you wanted to do, I mean, probably the best thing to do if you want to do like that type of an advice column would be to, you're probably not going to find a lot of get much response from Republic, Tucson Daily Star, Arizona Daily Star. But you might from, where do you live, Sally? What community?
What community?
Yeah.
I live in Fountain Hills.
Oh, okay. What you might do is approach the staff over at the Times and see if they would have an interest in whatever type of an advice column that you're wanting to do. Letting them know what your specific expertise, why you're the one who can do it, why it would be credible if you did it. Oh gosh, Ryan Winslet is the editor over there.
I'm already in touch with him, and we have a very good rapport where I do, through opinions, I give advice in a way, an opinion way. I don't know. That's the way I do it now. But I'm wondering if I could, get that a little different slant.
Yeah,
so, but he would be. I could discuss it with him. You're saying, because
yeah,
I already know him.
That would be the way to go. And then if it takes off here, I mean, if it gets a great response, if he agrees to do it, if it gets a great response, from there it could probably grow to the other independent papers and maybe even beyond that.
Yeah.
But yeah, start small and see where it goes.
Okay, I'm going to do that because I already have a little foot in the door. He's accepting these opinions, but they're not real opinion. They really are. I have a message that I like to, put in those.
Yeah.
So
the thing about I don't want to rain on your parade here, but
I understand.
The Times has a long history, even before they were part of Independent, of running practically every letter they got. Which I thought was one of the strengths of the paper. But you're no name to him because you have submitted several times. So yeah, you do have at least a toe in the door, if not a foot.
Yeah, what I find now is the online, there's everything, immediately you could get a response online, but getting print is really hard. I mean, there's only so much room in that print. Online, there's, sure, we can do that. We can do that. But that print, it's become to me like, wow, they did print. That's great.
Yeah.
So do you feel that way too?
Yeah.
Like print is
too.
now more valued or something like that. Yeah.
I like it. When I read books, I always read a hard copy book because I just don't like reading on my computer. I like getting paper in my hand, and I guess I'm old fashioned, but my youngest son feels the same way. So my 2 middle ones, they're always on the computer. That's fine. But my youngest one likes print too. So it's not only an older thing.
Robert, I have a question about from an author perspective, obviously authors like to have press releases if a new book comes out, and that seems like an obvious thing. But if you're thinking of strictly from an author perspective, what what do you think the relationship is between an author and their local papers? Like, obviously that you can do the letters to the editor and guest ops if it ties in with your book or your writing life as an author, but are there any other connections you recommend?
Um, I have been thinking about that too. For the day that I finally get my book published, because I do want to start. Who was it? Jane Friedman, I think, recently had a column um, suggesting that you start publicity with your local media. Um, the Republic on their Sunday edition runs book reviews in the arts and entertainment section. They are written by somebody in, I think, Jackson, Mississippi. And so I don't know if there's anybody local writing for them. I would probably start there with Kathy Tulamello. If you go to AZ Central and go all the way to the bottom in the where they have all the links to the how to get contact us, there is a link um, to the news staff, and you can find her email there. She is I believe they call her the city editor or news editor, one of the two. She would probably be the person to start with in trying to get something. Or in trying to get a review, or at least telling you where to get the review. I was communicating with her on another subject. I was looking to get, because they hold a copyright on every column I ever wrote. It was a work for hire. And so I wanted to be able to repurpose some of those columns. And after a while, she answered the first couple of emails, and then I didn't hear from her again. So I don't know what to tell you as to what your odds are of getting a response from her, but you've got to at least try. I mean, if you don't ask, you can't get a yes if you don't ask. How did that go?
Same.
Yeah.
Right.
And then also, whichever community you're in, I would probably start with those newspapers too. I know that the Continental Times often runs short profiles of people who have book written. Since my book is set in northern New Mexico, I'll also be trying to do the same thing at the Las Vegas, New Mexico newspaper and the Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Thank you. Great ideas. Yeah, I guess if you wrote a book, even if you live in a particular area, but the major scenes are in another area, you could certainly have and I think, do you think that newspapers are still looking for news? I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. Their issue is they just don't have the staff to do everything that they used to be able to do. And so, yes, they will often grab like press releases or whatever and print them verbatim just because they have space to fill, or they can use it, particularly if your book, if your book has a tie-in to a current topic that makes you, and that's probably more likely with nonfiction than with fiction, that can give you a leg up on getting some publicity too. I'm trying to think of, yeah, if you're written a book about wildfires, anytime summer when there's a bunch of wildfires, that's the time to really push that book. Was that helpful at all?
yeah, very much so. And I think that works not just Arizona, but just,
Yeah.
anywhere an author is. Yeah.
Okay, I have added all of the URLs to the chat, as well as somebody asked for my email address, and so I put that in there as well. And now you have my full and undivided attention.
Great. Great. Yeah, I'm gonna save that.
Yeah, book reviews are another, that's really good. I don't think about looking for book reviews in newspapers, but when I come across them, it catches my eye. It's like some of the top news I look for is book reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think some of the state newspapers will also do little short book reviews or at least book announcements. I know that New Mexico Magazine does. I've not looked at the Arizona uh, one enough to know if it does, and I'm sure other states their magazines will do the same. So again, yeah, if your book is set someplace other than where you live, that's another place to look.
Do newspapers grab these reviews from a particular feed somewhere? The book reviews?
I, I don't know. I really don't. I have just noticed that the ones that are running in the Republic are because they're part of Gannett, which is 100 and some newspapers around the country, and so they share a lot of content. Um, I know that sometimes I was surprised to find something I had written in another newspaper somewhere else. Um, just forgetting that we had that network, and I was thinking I was writing for an Arizona audience, and sometimes I was writing for a much broader audience. But yeah, I did notice that the book reviews there are mostly from the Jackson, Mississippi newspaper.
Mm.
And I think they're listed as special to the USA Today network, so it's probably not even a staff writer, it's somebody who lives there who likes to do book reviews. And of course, within this group, we have the fellow who does book reviews, Mark
Walker.
Walker, yes.
Uh,
And he
Yeah.
would probably be a good one to pitch to do a review, and so you can use it on your jacket.
yeah, yeah. He's done at least 100.
Yeah.
So, does anyone else have any questions? Well then, I want to thank you for coming. I want to also say that our next workshop, Lorraine will be presenting, and that will be on September 12th. Let me see whether I got it here. Yeah, September 12th at 10 o'clock in the morning, Arizona time. And we will have her workshop. We will be featuring it on the homepage starting tomorrow or Monday, maybe. Uh, and so please,
What is the topic?
the topic is how to choose the best writing resources.
Ah,
And well, you know the topic title better than I do, but I think that was it. And so and it's going to talk about a lot of the resources. So Lorraine, if you want to say a minute something about it, you can. It's up to
Yeah,
you.
sure. It's just, there are so many resources out there for us these days. It's kind of endless. And so what I'm going to talk about is actually thinking about what you need, what's right for you, what's right for your writing life, and, you know, how do you find what's right for you? And actually even take the time to think about it. Because sometimes writers will just think, oh, there's a book festival nearby, I should go. Well, if you don't think about your whole writing life and how does that tie in, or today we heard about press releases or book reviews, and you think, oh, maybe I'm going to chase this, but you have to just kind of have a higher strategy for your writing life and know what you need when you need it. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And I have a whole book called Finish Your Book, and that's what it's about, is about, finish your book and get the right resources you need at the right time to do that.
And that's the perfect tie-in with the October workshop, because that's going to be on marketing. So you're going to finish your book and then you're going to market it. So that's great. Thank you all for coming so much. Thank you, Robert. This was great, and I appreciate you all. So see you next month. Thanks a
see you
lot,
then.
everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Robert.
you.
It was
Bye-bye.
fantastic.